undivided attention. We are very privileged and honored to have Chris Herron here come speak to the team.
Thanks, Coach. For me, it's a privilege. You know, for me, it's an honor. I've been fortunate over the last 3 years to travel around and speak to all different groups. Last week I was at Duke, speaking to their team. Spoke to the Packers, the 49ers, the Bears, the Patriots last year. Seahawks, Harvard, Yale, all different types. And for me, the reason why I do this, because like you, I had so many chances. Like you, I had so many opportunities where Coach Tarkanian would bring somebody in to talk about drugs and alcohol. And like you, if you're like me, I'd sit there and say, come on, man. All I do is blow trees, I drink, leave me alone. That's what I do. I'm never gonna hurt nobody, I'm never gonna take it a step further. So just let me do what I do. Let me go play ball and leave me alone. And unfortunately, looking back, at 32 years old when I got sober, I would do anything to go back to your age, sit in a room like this and sit up and listen to that, man. You know, I had no idea when I was 18 after playing the McDonald's All-American, I walked into my dorm room and there's a pile of coke. 18 years old, all I do is blow trees and drink. I'll never mess with cocaine. I walked in my dorm room, this little 18-year-old girl was like, one line. I took the dollar bill, I did it, saying it'll be the last time I ever do it. It took me 14 years to walk away from one line. 14 years, I was 32 years old with 2 children and a wife who was 8 months pregnant before I could walk away from one line. At 22 years old, I was playing for the Boston Celtics. I came home, bought a big house, a couple of cars with my wife and son. A buddy of mine walked into my backyard. He said, here, try this pill. Little OxyContin, 40 milligram, 20 bucks. He dropped it in the palm of my hand. I looked at it and I laughed. Threw it in my mouth, went back to the cookout. I had no idea at 22 years old that that decision that day would change my life forever. I had no idea that the 40 milligram pill was going to turn to 1,600 milligrams a day. That I'd take 1080s in the morning and 1080s at night. I had no idea that the $20 I spent that day celebrating buying my first home would turn to $25,000 a month dope habit. I'd be putting $25,000 a month in the street in OxyContin. I had no idea, man, when it was time for me to go back for my second season with the Nuggets, I was walking into the locker room, a full-blown junkie. Fully strung out on OxyContin. But my experience with the Nuggets was this. I had guys like McDice, guys like Van Exel, Brian Stiff, Popeye Jones, Chauncey Billups, who pulled me aside and they said, we know your history. We've seen 60 Minutes, we've seen your reality show on Fox, we've seen Rolling Stone magazine, it ain't happening. So when we go on road trips, you're not gonna leave the hotel unless you're with one of us. If we go to restaurants, you're not ordering alcohol. Periodically, when you're checking in on your room, make sure you're not smoking. And with those type of teammates, that rookie season with the Nuggets, that was my best season. And then I got traded, I went back to Boston, and I found myself on street corners in my warm-ups, copping oxys before the game because I was too sick to go in the starting lineups. So here I am, 23 years old, playing for my hometown, in my warm-ups outside the Boston Garden on the street corner, waiting for my man, driving it up from my hometown so I can get my oxys in my system in order to play in the starting lineup for the Boston Celtics. Halfway through that season, I tore my rotator cuff. I got a phone call, my season was done. I got a phone call from the #1 team in Europe. We're gonna pay you over $500,000 in cash, no taxes. House, 2 cars, school for your boy. Jumped on a plane, went to Italy, had 380 milligrams smuggled in my luggage with my wife and son going into that country with the best intentions. Said to myself, I'm just gonna do it a little. I'm gonna cut my milligrams down every day. I woke up 2 weeks later out of 380s, dope sick, on my way to practice. I said, let me dip into the train station. I pull into the train station, park my car, watch this man serve people as they pull up. My turn. I pull up, he walks up, 24 years old, I couldn't say oxy in Italian, Apana, Vicodin, and Percocets. All I could do at 24 was to roll up the sleeve and point to my veins. As soon as I pointed to my veins, the man nodded his head yes. He kicked open his door, he sat down, I drove away. I pulled down this little alley. He looked at me and said, "Are you sure it's not cocaine? You sure you want heroin?" I said, I need heroin, man. I'm sick. He reached in his mouth, he grabbed a string that was tied to his tooth. He started pulling it up. When he got to the bottom of it, there were 15 balloons of black tar heroin tied down that string. He said, "How many do you want?" I said, "I want all 15. I might never see you again." He snapped it, dropped it, bought it, reached in his pocket, pulled out a spoon, pulled out a syringe, and started cooking heroin on my front seat. 24 years old, I'd never been around it, never seen it. 24 years old, the man looked at me and said, "If you're so sick, roll up your sleeve." 24 years old, I rolled up my sleeve, and I let the man shoot me up. 24 years old, I became an intravenous drug addict. 24 years old, I never went back to those stupid little yellow pills. What's amazing is at the rookie transition program, I sat there 2 years earlier saying what a joke this is. 2 years later, man, I'm in an alley in Bologna, Italy, banging heroin to get off this withdrawal. I went on to play, man. I went on to play in countries all over. I played in Beijing, Shanghai, Italy, Spain, Istanbul, Poland. And the last country I played in was Warsaw, Poland, and the team came in and they said, "You're no good no more, man. We're sending you home. Your drug addiction is finally taking its toll." I looked at my general manager, I said, "Come on, man, just pay me my money. I've been here 2 months. I got 2 kids at home." He said, "The only thing we're paying you is a flight. Where do you want to go?" I said, "Send me to Fresno, where I went to college. I'm not ready to face my wife and 2 little ones yet." So I landed in Fresno, because in Fresno I got an old 6'6" tight end, college buddy, a couple of tryouts in the NFL. Him and I used to walk into this like this. Come on, man. Now me and this 6'6" tight end, both former athletes, both married, both 2 kids, both with the same drug problem. Just nobody knows about his yet. He picked me up at the airport in a brand new Range Rover. I jumped in, he said, "You look sick." I said, "I feel sick, man." He said, "Open up my middle console." When I opened it up, there was a ½ ounce of coke, a finger, a black tar heroin. He said, "There's needles in my glove box, dog. You can get off right now in my car. I'll wait till we get back to my house." I waited. We pulled up, walked up to his big house. This little 22-year-old girl opened the door. That was his personal assistant. She took my luggage. She went into the office. Me and a football player, we went into his living room, and we speedballed for 5 days straight. 2 27-year-old former athletes who took this as a joke, sat in the living room couch, shooting heroin and cocaine for 5 days straight. No sleep, man. Paranoia starts getting me. Start thinking the cops have the whole house surrounded. Day 5, my wife's calling me, 2 kids. When I answer, she says, "We're at the airport in Chicago. Pick us up in 2 hours in Oakland." I looked at the football player and I said, "I don't think I can do this, man." He said, "Chris, you don't got no choice. You haven't seen your kids for almost a year." I jumped in the shower, I grabbed the keys to his Range Rover, I started driving down the highway at 27 years old. That paranoia was overwhelming me, so I'm taking exit, and I'm waiting 20 minutes. Come back down, I stop the car, I start driving. Pull over, wait 20. After 8 hours, man, I'm pulling over, waiting 20, 5 hours late to pick up my wife and 2 little ones. I pulled the Range Rover in a breakdown lane, I dropped the keys, I waited for the next set of headlights. As soon as those headlights got close enough, I threw my body right in front of them. 27 years old, man, I don't want to live like that no more. I wanted that car to hit me in my chest, drag me down the highway and put me out of my misery. When I jumped out, the man swerved, he crashed. Next car coming was a woman, she stopped right in front of me. She called 911. 2 minutes later, California Highway Patrol came. Took me to jail. 5 hours later, I bailed out. On my way out, they said, "Stop at the glass window to get your belongings from last night." 27 years old, I walked up to a window, told the man my name. He picked his head up. He said, "You know, after Chris Herron I used to watch at Fresno." I said, "Yes, sir, that's me." Shook his head, laughed, and said, "What a shame." Slid me my belongings. 27 years old, my belongings were $17. A 10, a 5, and 2 $1 bills with a wife and 2 kids. 4 years earlier, I heard my name called in the starting line for the Celtics. 4 years later, I got $17 left. So with the $17, I said, I'm going homeless. Bought a soda, jumped in a dumpster behind the 7-Eleven, sat in it, cried 4 hours, waited for the streets of Modesto to die down. As soon as it died down, I jumped out and I made my bed. Slept there that night, woke up to 2 homeless men standing over me, asking me if I was okay. They picked me up off the ground. Told me there was a homeless shelter 3 blocks away. I followed them, I signed myself in for the night. Next 3 hours, with $17, me and 2 homeless men, we drank. When I was down to $2.50, I walked in, I said, this is the last beer, man. Put it on the counter, he came in, told the woman he's not buying it. When I looked at him, he said, I've been living on these streets for 19 years, son. I lost my family 20 years ago. It's not too late. I want you to go across the street, call your wife and kids, tell me sorry, man. Get your life back. Across the street, call my wife, 26 years old, raising 2 little ones. She said, I just want you to know, little Chris, man. Little Chris and Sammy stood on that sidewalk at Oakland Airport for about 9 hours waiting for their father. They wouldn't let me put him in the taxi because they said you would never leave him there like that. And every car that pulled up, they got excited, got their bag, and then the car blew right past your kids, man. I want you to know, you broke their heart last night. 27 years old, I'm listening to this. 27 years old, she said, where are you? I gave the address to the 7-Eleven. I sat out in front of that 7-Eleven for about 10 hours waiting for her to come. She never showed. I went back to bed in between the dumpster and the chain link fence. The next day I woke up to a horn. When I opened my eyes, it was my wife parked right there. I jumped in, little Chris and Sammy were in the back. When I turned around to look at them, they started crying. Asking me how come I don't want to be their father no more. Why am I sleeping on the street like that, Dad? Asking me questions I had no answers to at 27, man. 2.5 hours I got home. When I got home that night, that football player called my phone. That football player said, dog, you must be sick. I want to make it right. I'm going to come scoop you up around midnight, let little Chris Sammy fall asleep. You go to my house, get you high, you'll feel better. At 27, I said, nah, man, I'm going to pass. He called me back at 1:30 in the morning. At 1:30 in the morning, I saw his name in the caller ID. I looked at my kids sleeping. I thought about going. I flipped the phone back down. The next time my phone rang was at 5:30. 5:30, I saw the name on the caller ID. I answered. When I answered, all I heard was screams. I could still hear screams like I never heard before. And all of a sudden, they said, the police at the house right now. Were you with him? They want to know. And I said, nah. I was supposed to be. Put on the news. I put on the news. 2 minutes later, that football player popped up. That football player used to sit in these rooms like you guys are today. His house popped up. 2 minutes later, this woman stepped in front of the camera. She said, last night, 2:30 in the morning, an unknown assailant kicked in the football player's front door. Took his little personal assistant, the 22-year-old, put her down on her knees, shot him in the back of the head, put him down and shot him in the back of the head. They were executed that night. Over $400. At 27 years old, I said no to drugs for the first time in my life. And it saved my life that night. After the murder investigation, I jumped on a plane. I moved back home with my wife and kids. From 28 to 32, I was a street junkie. Find me in my hometown walking up Main Street hustling, Herron. People say that's the former Celtic. My kids, no more Xboxes, PlayStations, PS3s, DSs in my house, man. Pawn shops got all that. My wife's jewelry, pawn shops got all that. Some nights no light, some nights no heat. No more Christmases and birthdays in my house, son. My addiction took it all. My routine at 32 years old, man, was to put little Chris and Sammy on a bus. I put them on a bus, 9 and 7. I walk up to the local liquor store, I buy 2 pints of vodka. On my way home, I stop at the local 7-Eleven. I watch people put their cigarettes out in the ashtray. As soon as they put their cigarette out, I run up and fill my pack up with their poke outs. I fill my pack up with their cigarettes, I go home, smoke poke outs, and drink 2 pints of vodka. I wait for my kids to come home. I got a phone call, if you can come down here, I'm gonna throw you 4 bags. June 4th, 2008. Jumped in my car, I drove down there, sat in the side street, shot 4 bags. As soon as I shot it, I felt that feeling. Started my car and I started driving, I don't remember driving. I was found 2.5 miles away, crashed into a cemetery fence. Police report said my skin was gray, my lips were blue. Narcan versus overdoses. They administered it, it didn't work. So they were content with pronouncing me dead on scene. 32 years old, slumped on my steering wheel with a needle in my arm and 2 kids waiting for me. I'm supposed to be waiting for them to get off the bus. They threw me in the back of the ambulance, kept working on me. In the back of the ambulance, I popped up. When I popped up, a police officer grabbed me by my throat and shoved me back down. He said, shut your mouth, you were just dead 30 seconds ago. I laid back down, he cuffed me. 2 minutes later, I pulled into the hospital. My hometown hospital, where at 18 years old, I was the kid with the brightest future and the biggest dreams. Now at 32, I'm a broken junkie, man. I walked in, they put me in a room. Nurse walked in, shined the light in my eyes, took my blood pressure, told the police officer, get the junkie out of here. We need this win. Police officer looked at me and said, Chris, I'm gonna do you one favor, I'm gonna cuff you. I'm gonna summon you, show up to court, 4 weeks, face your charges, go to treatment, man. He uncuffed me, handed me the paper as I'm walking out. I said, I'm walking to my homeboy's house, I'm grabbing his gun. I'm sticking it in my mouth, I'm blowing my head off today. Today I will kill myself. 32 years old, I'm ending this nightmare for everybody involved. As I'm walking out thinking about putting a gun, this nurse keeps yelling my name, asking me to come back. I wave her off, I keep walking. She said, don't wave me off, man. I went to high school with your moms. My mom died at a young age. I said, miss, no disrespect, but don't talk about my mom right now. She said, I got no choice, your mom's talking to me right now, telling me not to let her little baby leave this hospital. So please come in here and let me do your mom a favor and make some phone calls. I walked back in, I sat with this woman, 32 years old, that she called treatment center saying, I got a former NBA basketball player, no money, no job, no insurance, free bed. Everybody said no, except one center said, we'll give you 5 days. 10 years banging heroin, I got 5 days. I did my 5 days as I'm being discharged. Chris Mullen, all of y'all should know what Chris Mullen is. Called my phone and said, I can't tell you how many centers that I've walked out of. How many facilities I wish I could have went back to. Me and my wife have the resources. We want to pay for you to go away for treatment. Will you take our gift? Took the gift, went away, was there 35 days. I got a phone call from my wife who said, she's going into labor, can I come home for the birth? 35 days sober, I asked my counselor, he said no, and I said, sir, I was high, blown out for Chris's birth at 21, blown out for Sammy's at 24. Let me be sober for one of my kids' births. Called me a taxi 4 hours later, my son Drew was born. Sat with that little baby for about 5 hours, knocked on the door, little Chris and Sammy, 9 and 7, come in, Daddy, can we hold them? Of course you can. Look at my wife, I'll be back. Never came back. 35 days into it. Jumped on the phone, called my dope dealer, he picked me up, I was shooting dope and smoking coke. An hour later. 35 days earlier, I was found dead on the side of the road. Home for the birth of my son, and I'm back on the streets. When I walked in, my son looked at me and said, Dad, when you go away next time, don't come home no more. Every time you come around here, you ruin it for me, Mommy, and Sam. Don't do it to Drew. I never heard my 9-year-old speak that way. Next morning, I woke him up, went to the hospital. My wife laying in bed, takes one look at me, she said, I called the police. Get out of here right now and don't ever come back. I watched my 9-year-old and 7-year-old start crying. Said goodbye, jumped in the car, drove back to the place. When I walked in, the man at his door said, I just got off the phone with your wife, I heard about your home visit. I said, if you heard about my home visit, man, we don't need to talk about nothing. He said, of course we do, you lost your family, son. That's what addiction does. Be in my office at 10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock sharp, I knocked on his door, man. When I walked in, he flipped his cell phone and I caught it. He said, now, you're gonna do the most courageous thing you've ever done in your life. You're gonna flip that phone open, you're gonna call your wife, and you're gonna promise her it's gonna be the last phone call. Promise her you'll disappear. Promise her you'll never contact her again. Tell your wife to tell your 3 kids when their daddy left them in the hospital this month. Their daddy died in a car accident. From this day forward, you're gonna play dead for these little kids. And you're gonna let them live. 32 years old, man, that made sense to me. I looked at that phone, I flipped it back to him, I said, maybe tomorrow, sir. Walked back to my room, I hit my knees and I started praying. That day I hit my knees was August 1st, 2008. By the grace of God, at 32 years old, one day at a time, I've been sober since. I thank God every day for that man's words. Thank God every day for that woman who chased me out of the hospital, stopped me from killing myself, from the man who swerved. I look back, and at 32 years old, I finally found the person I'm comfortable enough with to walk around as myself. Just recently told the same thing at Oklahoma City Thunder. And what's amazing is when I walked into that rookie camp this year and did my thing, I said, what's ironic is that there's more future junkies and drunks in this room than there are NBA All-Stars. But yet we all sit back and act like we're NBA All-Stars. That's what's amazing to me. What's amazing to me that the stats, 80% will be broke after 5 years playing professional basketball. 82 will be estranged from their family. But yet we all sit here cool. Like it don't bother me. You're unique, man, if you retire with money. You're unique. And norm don't walk away with a ton of dough in their pocket, man, and make it last a lifetime. But it's because of the behavior that when we walk into these rooms, it don't pertain to us. That's the reality. You know, I was talking to your coach before this. My Fresno State team, we had, I think, 7 NBA players on my college basketball team. Ray Alston, Tremaine Folks, Melvin Eli, myself, Courtney Alexander, Terrence Roberson was drafted. We had about 7, 8 of us. We all come back to one another and say, I wish we weren't on our own agenda, man. Every time we stepped on the floor, it was about me. It was about him. It was never about us. We had 7 NBA guys we never made it to the tournament. Because we walked out and we played selfish. You know, I look back, and I think most players would say it. The regret of the hours you could have put in, the wasted time, smoking, drinking, playing video games, and you could have been in here doing your thing. That's the reality. I think most people look back at their career and wish they put a little more time in. Do this with no regrets, man. All right, man? God bless you, man. Best of luck.
Thanks, man.